Hey there, I would like to talk to you a little bit, real quick, about water pumps and wind pumps in Townstar. So let's talk about water pumps first because they are easier to discuss. Okay, typically you wouldn't have it next to your crops because they're for industrial buildings, and so due to that you're not going to want your crops next to the industrial type buildings. So but if you did want one, they do not cause any effect on your crops, and you have to attach them either to the flat side of a pond, not the, like you couldn't put it right here but diagonally. It has to be on one of the four flat sides, or it can be attached to a river or ocean. And the purpose of a water pump, sorry about that, I am selling grapes. The purpose of a water pump is to, if you have industrial buildings that require a water drum, like for example the lumber mill, when you make lumber, you can't tell it from here, but when you make lumber it requires one water drum. I can show you actually out here. So the water drum, you can do it one of two ways. One, you could have it next to a water pump, or B, you can have a water facility that creates water drums. And if you do it that way, it is much cheaper. It's only $10K, whereas the water pump is $50K. The water facility, however, is a manual process, so you have to make sure that you're not overfilling your warehouse with water if you're doing it that way, or you know, it's just another step to manage, really. In some cases it wouldn't matter, and you might not have any other purpose to have your warehouse. So if you have one warehouse and you just keep filling it with water, they'll do what that guy did just then when he destroyed that energy. It won't hurt anything. But if you're trying to collect something like iron or something else that goes in your warehouse, then you have to manage the space, and it does matter. Okay, so keep in mind that when you're talking about something like the lumber mill here, just the diagonal connection there, that counts. So this would be, it would use that as the water source. But when you want to build a power plant or a steel mill, you have to have it on the flat side of the water pump. So you basically have three choices. You certainly can't put it on the side where your water source is, so you would have to put it in one of the other three spots. And I don't know why they make steel mills require a water pump, because if you're making blue steel with a steel mill, it doesn't even need water. But the requirement to build one is a paved road and a water pump, and it has the same restriction. It's got to be on the flat side of a water pump to create the building. However, if you have more than one, like if I had a water pump here and a water pump there, and this was my steel mill, it would count both of those, even though that's a diagonal connection. Okay, so really that's all there is to water pumps. It satisfies the need for industrial buildings that require a water drum. You can connect more than one per building. Like if I have a water pump here, I could have one here and have one here, and then this would get 3 water. It doesn't need 3 water, but it would have it if it needed it. Okay, so wind pumps are like wells, and I'm assuming everybody kind of has the concept of the well because of you start the game with a well and a farmer watering some wheat. So that's what the wells are for, is to water your crops that need it. Now if you notice, it does not cause, these are growing green, they are not affected by that well. However, I want to show you with the well, let's wait for that to get some wood. I want to show you what it is like with the wind pump. But while we wait for wood for that, let's go ahead and talk about another thing. Well, what can have an effect on wells or wind pumps? And shade does not affect a well, but pollution really does. You see how it's right here next to that, and it's a 4 minute, and this one 2 minutes. So they are at their maximum amount of time to process when they are next to any kind of pollution. And the things that cause pollution would be like these buildings here, and also refineries and power plants, and fuel storage and oil pumps, and those types of things cause pollution. But they don't, well, that's a topic for another video. Okay, so we've got, that's growing green, you notice. Now I'm going to activate the wind pump, which is going green, which is fine, but look at that. The wind pump has an effect of 1 shade. Notice that one's still green, or 1 shade on your crops. So whatever is touching it all the way around, notice this one is green, whatever is touching it, so you have to consider that. It's not as good as a well in that regard. However, it's better than a well in the regard of it being faster to produce water. You notice that when it was, this was 4 minutes and this was 2, so you know that's half the time. When they're at their fastest, you can always check these if you go in here. They're under the farm tab. The wind pump is 15 seconds when it is at its fastest, and the well is twice that. It's 30 seconds. However, to me, if I'm building a pond or something, honestly, unless I've got a ton of builders, by the time they get over here, this is already respawned anyway. So I don't use these much, but if you have, if you need to use them for your farmers or whatever, to water crops, because you, like, say you're growing pumpkins and you really, it's impractical to try to have 20 water around it, then these come in handy. But you want to also be cognizant of the fact that they do cause one shade. And so I think that pretty much covers. You notice this is already ready and that's still processing. Alright, so that pretty much covers water pumps versus wind pumps. They're for water pumps are for the industrial, and wind pumps are for the crops. Or the only real exception to that is the water facility itself. If you have a water facility, they require 3 water. If you don't have it where you have 3 passive water, even though this is an industrial building, they will take the water from your well or your wind pump to actually create it. And other than that, any industrial buildings are going to use water pumps, which are generated from the water drums, which are generated from the water pumps or the water facility. And then your crops are going to use water. If they don't have enough passive water, they will need to be watered by your farmers with a wind pump or a well. And so I hope that was informative and helpful. If it was, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.